Motorfest.
Motorfest, yeah!
With year 2 just around the corner, I thought it'd be a good idea to go over all the year 1 playlists and review them. Playlists are the centerpiece of Motorfest. It's why we're on this festival in the first place. This is where most players will spend their time before moving on to the PvP elements such as the Grand Race. And I'm going to be reviewing all 20 playlists. Now there's a couple things I have to mention. First off, 20 is a lot of playlists, so I'm not going to hyper-analyze all of them, otherwise we'd be here for hours. I'll try and keep my review of each playlist to around a minute. Also, one thing I learned from this is that while reviewing other people's takes and going over all the playlists I may have underrated, is that there truly is a playlist for everyone in this game, especially with all the variety in them. That being said, if I shit talk a playlist you liked, or I praised a playlist that you disliked, then don't get mad at me for it. I'm just stating my own opinion on whether I enjoyed it or not. After all, we all have different values on what we consider fun, and you shouldn't let some random YouTube video ruin your enjoyment. So instead of throwing all your stuff at me because of my takes, let's use this video as the basis for a constructive conversation. With that out the way, let's get on to the video. Enjoy. Let's start this tier list off with the banger, the Made in Japan playlist. This is one of the most respected playlists in the game, and for good reason. It has great visuals, fun tracks, and a good car selection. This playlist is how I first got introduced to Motorfest, and it couldn't have been a better introduction. It left a great first impression on the game. I only have 2 real complaints about this playlist. The writing of the characters can be kind of annoying at times, but then again, we are playing a racing game, which is usually synonymous with cheesy writing.
Very dangerous.
The reward car also kinda sucks. Not only is the Supra pretty underwhelming for its class, but it also has no customization, as with all Toyotas in this game. Besides that, I'd say this is nothing short of an S tier playlist, and a great playlist to start off our tier list. Up next, we have Hawaii Scenic Tour. The host for this playlist is Keolo Raposo, who runs Fitted, a clothing brand from Hawaii. This is a pretty chill playlist and it has some of the most authentic writing in the game, going over all the island's attractions. The best part of this playlist is that you can take it as slow as you want, since you don't have to win the races. I didn't really catch that on my first playthrough, but after replaying the playlist, I was able to have a pretty chill experience. The design of the events is pretty good. The only problem is outside the context of the playlist, they seem to drag on for pretty long, especially when presented as summit events. The challenges for this playlist also took forever to complete, especially the ones for getting all the collectibles. But it's a pretty good playlist if you don't care about winning and you just want to learn and have a relaxing time. I'm going to put this in B tier. Up next, we have American Muscle. And to be honest, even though I do love muscle cars, I didn't really care for this playlist as much. It mostly gets carried by the Mustang brand, and none of the events were really that enjoyable to me, except maybe the monster truck one, because I liked riding through the banking. Apart from that, it's just pretty alright. I don't really have anything much else to say about it. I'll throw it in C tier. Going off of that, we have the Porsche playlist, 911 Legacy, which goes over the history of the model. Even though this playlist is pretty short, there's not a single event wasted. All of them have great variety, and the races are well executed. I feel like this is one of the best playlists to introduce for newer players. It shows everything Motorfest is about, highlighting the best parts of each class. Overall, this is a pretty balanced playlist, although it can seem a bit short at times. I'll have to throw in an A tier. Now we have Rule the Streets, the Donut Media playlist. If you've paid attention to my videos, you could probably guess what I think of this playlist. F tier. Nah, I'm just playing. S tier. In my opinion, this is one of the most fun playlists in the game, and it really showcases the best of Donut Media. It has a great balance of skillful events, such as Legendary Rivalry, one of my most played tracks, and fun events as well, like Raptor Delicacy, which has you try to avoid the cones as your truck is forced at a certain speed. This playlist also comes with one of the best Street Tier 2 reward cars, the C8 Stingray Donut Media Edition. And if you do the challenges, you can get the best horn in the game.
Motorfest, yeah!
Like I said, it's an S tier playlist. Now let's do a 2-for-1 deal. I'm going to be reviewing both the Off-Roading Addict playlist, Volume 1 and 2. These playlists follow Pierce and his misadventures off-roading through Hawaii. I think he's my favorite character in the game, just based off the funny commentary. The peak of this is in Volume 2, where he ended up getting chased by a bear.
I'm sure of it now. I'm dealing with a bloody bear.
The challenges for the first playlist also grants you the most Giga Chad title in the game, Dirt Enjoyer. I'm going to rank the first playlist in B tier, and the second one in S tier. I feel like Volume 2 improved on everything Volume 1 did, especially track design. There were quite a couple tracks in Volume 1 that I didn't enjoy, but I ended up enjoying every single track in Volume 2, especially the dirt bike one. Next is the Vintage Garage playlist, which brings a unique feature to the game, Dynamic HUDs. As you progress through the playlist and unlock different technologies, such as traction control and nitrous, your speedometer will also update with multiple different themes. To be honest, I was kinda disappointed to find that other playlists didn't have custom HUDs, but I think we'll get some more in the future. As for the playlist itself, the events are pretty fun, and it has some pretty great car selection as well, going over some iconic cars of each decade and ending with a beautiful Ferrari F40 on a well-balanced track for the car. It's a pretty good playlist. I'll throw it in A tier. Up next, we have Automobili Lamborghini, which suffers from the same problem as American Muscle, but hosts some other problems as well. Even though the car selection is pretty good in my opinion, I still have trauma from the clean driving challenges. It's already hard enough with all the props in the track, but nah, the bots have to go out of their way to ruin the challenge for you, since they have no sense of awareness and they'll usually just ram into you, ruining your score. If I have to hear that clean driving sound one more time, I'm about to crash out. The playlist also drags on for a really long time as well, which I guess is kinda justified from the car choice, but it just left me really bored halfway through. D tier. I know it looks kinda weird having it below American Muscle, but the annoying parts of this playlist bring it down a lot. Let's move on to the Motorsports playlist. This is probably the most immersive playlist in the game, from the tournament to the banter with the co-driver and the overall racing atmosphere. Unfortunately though, I didn't really enjoy it all the way through. That immersion quickly got replaced with burnout, especially since all the events are basically in the same place, and some of the cars are pretty bad, like the Acura. I know a lot of people enjoy this playlist, but I can't really see myself playing it again. Okay, well, except for the challenge just made me do it all over again, and I slept through it. I think this playlist would have been better executed if they took a more historical standpoint, going over the history of road racing in general, and also implementing oval racing and dirt racing as well. That would have made for a more comprehensive motorsports experience. I'll put it in C tier, but I think it's one of the strongest C tier playlists. You just really need to be into it in order to enjoy it. Alright, so now we're at the halfway point of the tier list. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it so far. This one took a while to make. Electric Odyssey is the next playlist. This is a very atmospheric playlist with two gimmicks. The first gimmick is that before each race, you actually have to deliver the car to the starting line, but you also have a damage meter, so you can't break your car, otherwise you lose the event. And throughout each event, the nitrous actually works differently. Instead of the nitrous regenerating on its own, you have to regenerate it manually by driving over these pink roads, which makes for a very exciting experience. I think it was a pretty cool playlist. I'll put it in B tier. I hope this one gets a part 2, since I feel like they can do a lot more with this. Now let's move on to the Supercar Blondie playlist, Dream Cars. This is a pretty solid playlist with one of the most interesting car selections. They chose a very unique cast of hypercars, and I especially like the reward car as well, the Mercedes-Benz Silver Arrow, which is easily one of the best hypercar rewards in the game. All of the tracks are really fun as well, and they perfectly fit the cars. I think this is another playlist that needs to be expanded upon. I'd love to see more rare hypercars in the game. Retard, please add the Chrysler ME412, please. I'll put it in A tier. It's a very consistent playlist that put me on some cars I otherwise wouldn't have known about. Now let's go on to bike lovers, which I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I did not enjoy this playlist at all. I was really bored all the way through, and it's not even that I hate bikes or anything. I think the bikes in the game are pretty cool, but there's two things that are wrong with the playlist. First off, the bikes really suck in this game. They all understeer way too much, and they don't really feel satisfying to drive. The playlist also felt like a drag as well. The first event left me super bored especially, which is 2 laps, and it could take 6 to 10 minutes to complete. I feel like the course is way too technical for a starter course. They should have chose something with wider corners. Not only that, but this also has one of the most broken races as well. I don't remember the name, but it's the one with the Harley Davidson, where the checkpoints are so wide that you could just take ridiculous cuts going up the mountain. There's basically no reason to follow the road. I like shortcuts in racing games, but this is kind of ridiculous. I don't know what they were thinking with this one. I'm gonna have to make this our first F tier playlist. It could have been a lot better executed. Let's move on to the Liberty Walk playlist. This playlist goes through each of the pillars of Liberty Walk and has some really balanced track designs. The car selection is pretty interesting. I just wish we had more actual Liberty Walk cars. They mentioned the Liberty Walk F40, but we don't even get to drive it. And the one there isn't even the actual F40 itself. It doesn't even have the wide body. In other words, I feel like the car selection should be a bit improved, but the reward car is really good though, so I'll give them kudos for that. I also like pissing Toji off by wrecking my car.
Wow, take it easy. Respect the craft.
I'll put it in B tier. It's a pretty chill playlist, and has some really good tracks for the summits and custom mode. I just don't really care enough to come back to it. Now let's go over the Drift Volume 1 and Volume 2 playlists. To be honest, I'm not really that big of a fan of drifting for points, but the Drift Volume 1 playlist was still kind of fun for me. It had some pretty balanced variety, with some of the tracks being regular drifting tracks, some of them being drift tracks on the road, and also drift races as well, which are my favorite. But it also has one of my favorite drift events in the game, Dream Spiral, which is a very creative but fun challenge. I'm putting Volume 1 of the drift experience in C tier. Even though drifting isn't really my thing, I think it's a pretty alright playlist, and it had its enjoyable moments. Now, seeing how this played out with the Off-Roading Addict playlist, you would think it would follow the same principle of the second playlist being better than the first, but this couldn't be further from the truth. Drift Volume 2 is one of the most disappointing playlists in the entire game, and for a couple reasons. First off, instead of getting a unique voice actor, they just got Kara to narrate the playlist. Second, once you've played one of the events, you've basically played all of them, since all of the events are extremely easy and are all of the same type, leaving me very bored throughout the whole playlist. And third, it has some of the worst challenge rewards. We don't even get Vandies with this playlist. The only decent reward for the challenges is the title, and even that's kind of a hassle to get to. When this playlist dropped, I was expecting a lot more, but it only disappointed me, and I feel like it only exists to add more drift events for the summit. There seems to be a lot less effort put into it compared to the first playlist. I'm putting it in F tier. I'd get it if you're a drifting fan, but actually nah bro, I'm not even trying to defend it. The first playlist just clears. So after that snooze fest, let's review a good playlist. Gymkhana Grid Masters, the Hoonigan playlist. There's a lot to say about this playlist, so let's take it one by one. First off, the Hoonigan playlist gave us a whole island. Alright, well not really an island, more like a little stunt park, but whatever. Still a pretty good addition to the map. It also gave us some of the best cars in the game. I mean, the starter car is the Hoonigan, one of the most fun cars to drift with, and the most powerful car in the drift class. This playlist also came with a lot of other cars which are fun to drive as well. There's not a single bad event in the playlist either. All of them are extremely fun, and it also gave us a new modifier as well, the Gymkhana modifier, where you get points for doing stunts. I think of all the post-launch playlists to be added, the Hoonigan playlist is the most fun one by far, and I have no choice but to put it in S tier, as I can't see it being anywhere lower. I think this playlist should serve as a standard for the other ones to hit. And now we have Hollywood Action, a playlist which lets you be the stunt driver for a movie. This playlist came with a great update, and was overall enjoyable as well, with a pretty great car selection, especially the IVTA Zeus, the car in the last event, which was also really fun. It shares the same gimmick as Electric Odyssey, but instead of using that to get nitrous, you use that to get time on the clock so that it doesn't run out. It's just an overall really fun playlist. It also used to be home to two of the most broken money exploits in the entire game, so there's that I guess. A tier. Alright, just 3 more playlists to go. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to review just one more mid playlist, Ocean and Sky. Now on God, I don't hate the boats and planes of this game, I think they're an important addition to the series, but I absolutely dreaded this playlist. It switches between being extremely unfun and extremely boring. I don't know what it is about the bots, but they're just horrible in this playlist. Here, even more so than any other playlist, they will just straight up murder you. The plane events were kind of alright, but they're pretty boring. One thing that infuriates me though is the wind mechanic, which I think is alright on maybe 1 or 2 of the races, but they're always put in the least convenient spots, and it's just annoying to play against, not really adding any value to the race. I think they overused it quite a lot in these events. But none of that is even the worst part of the playlist. The worst part is single-handedly ONS Virtuoso, one of the most infuriating challenges in the game, where you have to get a perfect score on the final event. That wouldn't be too much of a problem on its own, except for the fact that the scoring can be confusing, since sometimes going through a green checkpoint won't even mean you get perfect, you'll just get nice. The timing for this is very tight too, so you could easily find yourself messing it up at the last second, even though it looked like you went through properly. The difficulty spike for this challenge is pretty much just vertical, and I'm not alone either. Many other people have struggled with it as well. If you want to get this challenge done easier, make sure to use the Slick 360 HP, as it has some of the best handling, and also max out any plane related affixes in the Legends point screen. I'm gonna have to throw this playlist in F tier. It's a shame too, because there's a lot more that can be done with the boats and planes, as proved by the other playlists. This playlist is just too trash to represent them properly. Okay, finally, we have reached the final playlist, Donks vs Lowriders, which was a breath of fresh air for the game. I think this is one of the most original playlists they've added yet, especially in terms of design. The playlist is split into 2 tracks, Donk and Lowrider, and going through each track gives you its own reward car. The playlist also puts a heavy emphasis on customization, with each playlist letting you customize another part of your car, until you end up with something that you could truly call your own. The challenge rewards for this are also bangers. You get a rooftop vanity, and also the V8 High Riser, one of the best engine swaps. And as a cherry on top, it also fixed the lowrider handling. Previously, you wouldn't be able to control when the hydraulics would activate, but with the addition of the playlist, the handling is now fixed, letting you enable and disable the hydraulics. I think this is a very fun playlist, and easily one of the ones I enjoyed the most. I'm gonna put it in S tier as the final playlist for our tier list. There we go, that's all of them done. I don't know how to end this video, so I guess we'll just talk about what I value with the playlist. I was able to get enjoyment out of all of them, even some of the lower tiered ones, but here's a few principles which I think makes for a good playlist. First of all, it needs to have good variety, otherwise the playlist gets boring. I'm talking about the idea of the concept, the car selection, the track locations, and everything in between. It has to keep itself fresh, otherwise it'll get stale too quickly and just feel like a waste of time. I know I've been talking about variety a lot through this video, but I think it's one of the key parts. A great playlist will differentiate itself and have something special in each event, so that's probably what I value the most. Up next, it needs to have good track design. If the tracks are unfun, then the playlist is just going to be unenjoyable. They need to have a reasonable amount of length without getting too boring, and also showcase some of the best parts of the map. I think a great example of a good long track is Liberty Territory, which takes around 10 minutes to complete, but you swap through 3 different cars, much like in a grand race, and it's a pretty scenic drive as well. And finally, the rewards need to be good. I love having a good reward car, and also the vanities, and especially the crew credits. God, I love crew credits. My favorite playlists tend to excel in all of these categories. Replayability is also important as well. I think that comes naturally with a fun playlist. It should give you a reason to want to come back to it. But what do you guys think is important in a playlist? And what are some of your favorite playlists as well? Let me know in the comments. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.